The Walking Dead by Telltale Games was a groundbreaking experience, and since I've already been over it, I won't explain how, but I will say you should check out that video. It's not super important to the context of this video, but I'm proud of it, dang it. I'll also say that it was a no-brainer to make a sequel. How could they not? So without a second thought, Telltale made and released The Walking Dead Season 2. But the question must be asked, was it better, worse, or just as good as the first game? I played it just to find out. While the first game was about Lee raising a child in the zombie apocalypse, this game is seemingly about being a kid in the zombie apocalypse. That's right, we played as the kid we raised, Clementine. And honestly, yeah, that makes sense. We spent all of last season teaching her how to survive. She's basically an extension of us. It only makes sense. It's kind of hard to think about anything else they could have done, but I still think they could have done a whole lot better. With all that being said, this game is arguably the worst The Walking Dead game I've played, at least from Telltale. We don't talk about the others. I know that's a super hot take, especially for longtime fans of the series, but this disliking of the game doesn't come from nothing, so please, let me explain it to you, and if by the end you agree with me, great. If not, that's fine as well. The game starts off pretty shortly after the events of Season 1, Clementine following Krista and Omid, until Omid is no more, and neither is Krista's baby, and then neither is Krista. That's right, we lose all ties we have to Season 1 within minutes. I get why they got rid of those two characters, and though I do like Krista and Omid from the first game, they are some of the weaker characters from the first game. It would have been nice to see a bit more of them, establish them as people more, and not just Clem's current caretakers. But of course, less than 30 minutes in, and we have to kill them off. We aren't tied to Season 1 anymore. It's not a continuation of the story outside of Clementine. And honestly, if they replaced Clem with some random girl, the game would feel almost exactly the same. And part of me wishes they did that, because then they wouldn't have been grounded to a story that's already been established, and it could have been its own story. I love having the opportunity to follow Clementine's story just as much as the next person, however, I hate watching it get so fumbled from a storytelling perspective. I really do wish they made the game detached from the first game, or if they had made it a proper direct sequel. Maybe explore how Krista took the loss of her husband and child. Give me a reason to feel something for someone. That perfectly leads me into my next point. Characters. Instead of a cast of characters that are mostly dynamic and human, we get cartoonish archetypes, and the thing is, they're not even the good ones. We have pregnant and mean. We have young and dumb and mean. We have young and nice. By the way, Luke is my goat. We have dumb kid, protective dad, and the guy that dies so early we barely get to know him. And then there's Alvin. Alvin's nice, kind of the overly optimistic soon-to-be dad, but we rarely get to interact with him, so it's hard to establish a connection. That being said, the same thing applies to all the characters outside of Luke. We meet this fine cast of characters initially by getting thrown into their shed by the supposed doctor who can't differentiate a dog's bite versus a human's bite. Now, I've never seen a human bite victim, but I have seen a dog bite victim. I drove them to the hospital even. And Carlos is a fucking moron. One, dog bites don't look anything like human bites. Our teeth literally couldn't be more different. I mean, look at the shape of the fucking jaw for Christ's sake. And two, you can't ignore a dog bite like that. Dogs have so much bacteria in their mouths that a bite is most likely to lead to infection if not clean. And infection can lead to worse things, like amputation probably. Although unlike Carlos, I'm not going to pretend that that's fact because I don't know and I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor. I have some other complaints here as well, like how 50% of this group were willing to just throw a kid in a shed with a wound and let her turn if it was a bite from a walker. Look, I get being cautious, but still, I don't see how no one was like, oh shit, if she turns, we'll have to kill the kid. Like, I know I fucking couldn't do that shit. It's depressing as all hell. And to top the icing on the cake, one of the only good dudes in the group dies within 1 to 2 episodes depending on your choices. All of those complaints are in episode 1. It's the first fraction of this game, and I'm already just disappointed. There's so many more though, through this whole game, and I can't cover them all because then this video would be like 5 hours long, so I'm only going to touch on the biggest complaints I have. Starting with one of the biggest ones, I never once cared about anyone in the group besides Luke and Kenny. Luke was just a nice guy. He seemed uncertain, but honest, and like a real person to me. He had flaws, but he seemed to get past them. Kenny is someone I know. An established relationship is already there, even if it is a little artificial since I knew him as Lee. But still, Clem and Kenny know each other, and so them having a relationship out of seemingly nowhere makes sense. My next complaint is that you do everything, but it changes nothing. Now, as the 11-year-old girl Clem is, you have to make choices to save people or let them die, usually by proxy rather than directly, but ultimately, these choices don't matter almost at all. Now, the argument could be made the same thing for Season 1, as Carly and Doug can live for a while, but they both eventually die. But but their characters were interesting. I actually got to know Doug, and I thought even though he was a pretty one-sided character, he was still a valuable member to the team. I don't care about Nick too much though, but I don't want him to die. Same with Sarah. I don't care, but that doesn't mean that they need to die. I'm just not gonna cry when they inevitably do. Not to mention, you are literally responsible for everything. We need to steal radios? Have Clem do it. Someone needs to turn on the PA system? Clem does it. Help out Scout and clear the bridge? Clem is perfect. Talk to the armed man twice? It's Clementine. You are an 11-year-old girl doing everything. Now, I know they had to put the player in control of the group's fate in one way or the other, but it just seems so unrealistic. Toward the end of the game even, Jane and Kenny are basically fighting for your approval like you're their mom and they're the kids. It's insane. Why am I supposed to save Jane in the first place? At this point, all you know about her is that she's kinda creepy, a loner, has left the group, had sex with Luke, and has a dead sister. She's super pessimistic and kind of an asshole. Now, Kenny isn't perfect either, but I know him, and he has a reason to be this way. He feels like he's crazy when everyone else is seemingly okay with being taken prisoner. He's the only one who initially wants to fight back, and he absolutely loses it when Sarita dies. But can you blame him? He's lost family after family, and that's why he's so protective of Clem. He doesn't want to lose another family member. Same with AJ, though I will say he definitely had it in his mind that that baby was his or something the way he treated AJ at first. And finally, my least favorite part is the blatant fan service. Now, I do think they left Kenny's ending in the first game ambiguous so people could say he's alive, but the odds he would ever see Clem again, it was literally the best case of right place, right time. And I understand them reminiscing about the past group and Lee being a part of that group, but what about some of the other characters like Mark or Doug or Carly, or even speculating about what happened to Lily after you left her behind? Not everything had to be about Lee, and when I saw the Lee RV scene, I just got sad. It was partially, oh, I miss Lee sad, though most of it was, god damn it, you're forcing me to feel sad because you mentioned a character that was so far better than any of the ones in this game. You're putting a better story in front of our face and mocking us with it. It highlights my main issue with the whole game at a conceptual level. We don't have a goal. See, in this game, I think the established goal is supposed to be survival and making it to Wellington, but both of these goals have been done before. The exact same formula was in the first game, except in the first game, it didn't feel so shallow because though those were our main goals as a group, it wasn't Lee's main goal as an individual. His main goal was to care for Clementine and make sure she's safe. That was the whole premise of the game. Savannah and survival came second to Clementine. If you got rid of Clem from the first game, it would suffer and it would just become a narrative survival simulator, kinda like this game feels. They repeated the same game as Season 1, but made it objectively worse. Worse characters, worse storytelling, arguably a worse protagonist, and a worse theme. There was no moral. There were rarely any decisions I had to genuinely think about. Like, take a moment and be like, oh fuck, who do I save? No, instead I paused at moments when the game made me upset because of its lack of literally anything substantial. It's like what El Camino was to Breaking Bad. An okay story about a character from its predecessor, but overall, it doesn't stand on its own. This game was a total mess. I never felt connected with anyone. It's silly they made the story the way that they did. They went from a 10 out of 10 banger of a game that no matter how many times I see the ending, I always get a little teary, to this game, where the only cool part of the endings is that there are different ones. There was so much potential, and I just felt utterly disappointed by this game. Now, criticisms without construction is bad. Even if I'm not a writer nor a game dev, I still think if I don't mention my opinion on how to make it better, I'm just chatting shit to chat shit. I think they should have made this game completely separate from the first. Maybe they should have made it more similar to Season 3, where Clem took a backseat to the story if she was in it at all. I understand why they chose this route. It's to close off the ambiguity to her ending, but personally, I love the uncertainty. I think they should have made a story with a clear goal from start to finish, not just random messes that end up with you deciding who to go with. Because the only goal we've had up to this point is to survive, with brief mentions of Wellington throughout. And I know that's probably accurate to what the real world would be like, but that doesn't make it fun as a narrative. I don't like this game. I never have, and I probably never will. This was one of the worst games of the franchise. I know that's a super controversial opinion. Most people I see online love this season and hate Season 3. But with all of what I said here about wanting a disconnected story from Clementine, maybe I'll genuinely like that game. Only one way to tell though. And until then, thank you for watching. If you liked this video or made it this far, consider subscribing and leaving a like. If you have any opinions about the game, feel free to leave them in the comments, but please be civil. I'm here to open a discussion, not a fight. But most importantly, have a wonderful day.